Alright, welcome back to the Siberian Black Army game in TNO. Yeah, things are going well. If you can't tell, I'm at war with everyone else in Central Siberia. So among the things that happened, German Civil War started. The South African War has begun. And the USA has already begun sending volunteers to South Africa. Japan has gone for the reformist prime minister. And among the Magadhan three, Cheetahs won. So, at least the fascists of the Far East aren't gonna win. I'm currently focused on trying to not lose too much ground and to try and capitulate, well, Novosibirsk. At the moment, I'm getting pretty close to integrating Krasnoyarsk too. A week left. Once that happens, I'll have several more points. My point count will jump from just 13, and it will gain about 29, I'd say. So my core point count will be 42. So I can keep only Krasnoyarsk without overstepping the 65% limit. Then if I capitulate Novosibirsk, they're the biggest threat. I don't have to worry about the PRC, since they're running low on equipment. And after a while, they'll probably also run out of manpower. Which is my big issue. I'm limited in manpower. Okay. That won't help me much for the moment. But it does mean that Novosibirsk is definitely a good bit of a ways close to capitulation. That was 15% of their points, 25. By capturing Novosibirsk and Tomsk, I should get another 40% or so. Ha! It worked. It actually worked. That was enough. Not even a falcon can fly against a storm. Yeah, there's some minor glitches sometimes with Conquest. In order to maintain the fact that I still have wonders, I'll put these last. You have to be careful. I have on occasion lost wonders because of this. So roads for grain. Many heads are better than one. The map of Central Siberia reeked of mildew. The signs dotted with rips and tears, and the city names rendered illegible from decades of exposure to the elements. Through it all, however, the double-headed eagle sat resplendent in the corner, its watchful gaze promising to prevent any harm to befall Russia. Although the eagle watched, very rarely did something stare back, until the fat face of Veniamin entered into its field of vision. The heck is this? We are really using maps from the Empire? He turned around to the rest of his peers, who were similarly hunched over the yelling map. It's old, but it's reliable. I brought pens. The man reached into his bag and retrieved 6 pens. We can mark out the different communes from here. He uncapped his pen and immediately scribbled over the coat of arms of the House of Romanovs, snuffing out the bird for good. I suppose we can go alphabetically. What's the status of Berez, Katerina? Less than ideal. We have been hit hard by communists to the east. Ever so often, some bitter old men will cross into our land and burn it all to the ground. The Black Army has promised to increase presence, but we've got nothing of the sort. The man nodded, drawing a skull of crossbones over the commune. Diverting from Zelenogorsk is a possibility. Much of the industry there was left untouched. This became the pattern. For 3 long hours, the young Russians drew signs and stripes, painting a picture of the free land interwoven with arrows. Goods danced across the frozen tundra, springing from place to place as the hunt for the perfect balance escalated. The man finally set his pen down and admired the work. It was messy, but well put together. It was organized as chaos, fitting for the free territory. Working together, there's nothing unachievable. What makes a teacher teach? Wrangling unruly Russian children was already a daunting task. Wrangling unruly Russian children who have been taught their whole lives that the only thing that truly mattered to them was their freedom and independence was nigh impossible. Still, Timofey persisted, or rather, Mr. Smirnov persisted. He still wasn't used to that, being a mister. The initial shock of being brought into the staff had not yet worn off. It was inexplicably odd to him that people looked up to him. Education was hard work. The young man found a spite in the break room chair and stirred his tea. Physically, he had retrieved his pen and began drafting his lesson plan for the next day. Mentally, he was back in the General Assembly, one amongst the rows of people tightly packed into the building. It smelled of rotting wood and sweat, but felt exhilarating. He had been leaning forward in his seat, watching the fiery speaker gesticulating at the podium. His passion seeped out of him and dribbled into the floor, soaking in the floorboards and expanding outward to the crowd. Soon the creature swallowed Timofey's shoes, his whole body soon to follow. The speaker roared in the name of education, overwhelming Timofey in his drive. Timofey twitched in his chair, a shiver down his spine, bringing him back to the present. He looked around the simple break room, only a table, a pair of chairs, and some tea. He wondered what made the man who spoke at the assembly go into teaching, but Timofey had his assumptions. A teacher is a light, a guiding force for those in the dark. In a land consumed by darkness, Lord knew they could all use a little light. Freedom for our sons and daughters, education for all. Gods of the North. Reports have slowly began filtering down from the movement in the distant communes of Siberia. What it is, really, we cannot say, but the fact that any form of news is leaving the region alone has set many wondering what exactly could be happening. Surely, if the communes are making any kind of stir for the first time in 20 years, it must be in some form important. Reports speak of stirrings from the religious. Those few traders who make their way that far north over the East Siberian trade routes have spoken of entire communes chanting in prayer, of churches being filled to the brim, and of some figure pushing them onward. No one knows exactly what has spurred this action, but the people of Siberia keep praying for one man. They call him the Father. So yeah, you remember me saying about nothing happening in those communes up to the north, those random little countries? Well, we've got another unifier up here. The Divine Mandate of Siberia. As of noon today, President Richard Nixon has officially resigned his post of President of the United States, the first to do so in nearly 200 years of American history. Nixon stood accused of wiretapping his rivals in the National Progressive Party during the 1960 election, as well as obstruction of justice for trying to cover up the deed. With impeachment inevitable, he left of his own accord rather than be convicted and removed. The office falls to Vice President John F. Kennedy, son of former President Joseph P. Kennedy. A charismatic figure, he has drawn both praise from progressives and ire from segregationists for support of civil rights. Whether he can step out of the Nixon administration's shadow and forge his own legacy has yet to be seen. Can Kennedy hold a nation together? Yeah, a little extra on the United States. Because of the failure in the war, the Democratic Party completely collapsed. Most of the politicians decided to go to the Republican Party, since, you know, if you can't beat them, join them. As a result, it was rebranded as the Republican Democrat Party. After basically winning a landslide election, and pretty much turning the US into a one-party state, a second party has formed, the National Progressive Party. They're anti-establishment in general, but they have, well, basically it's a unified party between the segregationists and the progressives. Well, in general, more extreme variants of the Republicans and the Democrats. There we go. Okay, let's go ahead and finish the focus stream. I could click this now, but there is a very bad side effect of overextended administration. I'll explain what it is later. It's pretty bad though, and the only way to fix that is through focus tree stuff, so nope, not doing that now. The AI usually does that immediately though, which can help cripple them a bit. For the moment though, all I have to do is just continue going down the focus tree. I'll wait on coring until I get through all of the slightly decreases coring time. Focuses have been done. President Kennedy assassinated. John Fitzgerald Kennedy, the newly inaugurated President of the United States, was assassinated this afternoon while being driven through the city of Dallas by a man identified as a radical Guyanese nationalist motivated by the belief that President Kennedy was intent on hegemonizing his country. After the recent disgrace and resignation of President Nixon and the sudden and disturbing murder of his successor, the President of the United States is in a state of shock. Speaker of the House John McCormack was raced to the White House to be sworn in as president and attempted to gain control of the traumatized country. America has suffered through a tumultuous few years, and now the nation's future seems more uncertain than ever. Time will tell if Americans rise to the occasion or collapse under the pressure. It takes just a second to die. The American despair. Whatever embers of optimism that still lingered in America's heart have been snuffed out by the recent tragedy. Misery and division grips our society once more, and the American dream is barely a memory. America's outlook has never been this bleak since the day the war was lost. Few Americans can find anything in our society worth striving for after what happened. Our nation has hit rock bottom, and it seems impossible to ever rise again. May God help us all. Two Men, Two Lies. Stepan Valentiv was a soldier in the Red Army. Before he was Companion Valentiv, before Russia had been shattered to pieces by the Wehrmacht, before it fell apart, Valentiv was a soldier in the Red Army. Alexander Vasilevsky is a soldier in the Red Army. Before he was a rebel in Mongolia, after Russia had been shattered to pieces by the Wehrmacht. After it all fell apart, Alexander Vasilevsky is a soldier in the Red Army. Valentiv thought of his past, and the past of the man beside him as they walked down the hallway. He wasn't sure what to say, or even if he should say anything at all. The click of their boots occupied the silence. Vasilevsky was his prisoner, a captured combatant and nothing more. At least that's what the records would say. Valentiv was caught off guard when a letter from Vasilevsky found itself on his desk. He was further taken aback when inside he saw demands. He was sure he had lost them when he accepted them. Mercifully, Vasilevsky broke the silence. "Thank you, Comrade Valentiv." Stefan did not respond, not out of arrogance or frustration, or anything of that matter. He didn't respond because he couldn't. They just kept walking until the doors were before them. A truck was waiting for them outside, its bed covered with a top so as not to have the contents fall out behind it. Vasilevsky made his way around the vehicle, inspecting it for any faults. Valentin spoke suddenly. "What will you do?" The question caught him off guard. Vasilevsky froze in his place. "What will you do once you get there?" Valentin repeated. "When I get back to the city, I think I will rest. I will rest and hope to see the day you march into the city yourself and drive out the Germans from this country for good. Best of luck to you, comrade." Well, the first combatant of the German Civil War is gone. Well, there's not going to be a reformist. History will show the trials to be necessary. Heydrich's gone now, too. He never wins. He's not supposed to win. It breaks the game. Or, well, the story. I won't go into why, but believe me on that. It's good that he doesn't win. The world is just a barrel organ which the Lord God turns himself. We all have to dance to the tune, which is already on the drum. Ah, the Black League. Oh no, not Thatcher. So, Thatcher won the election. Well, isn't that lovely? For reference, what exactly does she do? Well, to put it simply, she basically becomes an equivalent to Pinochet, a dictator in Chile who came by on democratic-ish means. Oh, thank you. The Aryan Brotherhood are gone. Defeated by Vyatka. There remains some justice in the Russian anarchy. Who are they? Well, for the common moron, how did Misha allow himself to get roped into this? Ironic that he would be visiting Baron. He had to be if this was what his life was now. He didn't hate living under the Black Army. Certainly beat the regime of Andreev, but it was a bit extreme for his liking. The Social Democratic Party was much more up his alley. But yet, whether he feared the repercussions, or if deep down in his heart he saw the potential for greatness, Misha agreed to travel to the newly liberated territory. "Here," he commanded, "this is the place." Mongolia was never an industrial powerhouse. Misha was familiar with the Khanate that once laid claim to the entirety of Eurasia, but this was not the grandiose House of Genghis. This was a meeting hall. This was meeting hall 8 in the retirement home. Misha threw the door open, his entourage following closely behind. The scene before him brought a smile to the bitter old man. The hammer and sickle, the rose, the brilliant tapestry of a star atop the Soyombo. The military may have been lacking, but the arts and crafts department surely got all the budget. A little bit under 100 men and women crowded into the room, each wearing some memorabilia of their respective party. "Greetings, companions!" Misha faked a large grin and followed the script. "The massive turnout here shows something. We are making real progress." Misha put his all into the act, but the unenthused crowd was having no part in it. "Now, I want you to take a deep breath." Misha stopped, letting out a sigh. Listen. I'm gonna cut the BS with you. The General Assembly wants me to give you this spiel about liberation and freedom, but that's all looks. The visibly confused occupants of the room raised their eyebrows. Was this some kind of joke? Misha could see things were going south. "Listen, it's just that Misha took a deep breath. It's that I cannot explain how this will work with just a pre-made speech. Anarchy is something you must enjoy for yourself. I've seen it firsthand. I lived in a state where people were shot if they passed out from exhaustion. I have seen tyranny firsthand and was used to it. It hardly fazed me at the time. Now I have seen the alternative. I have seen true cooperation, and it's beautiful. You can all bring that to your commune. You can bring cooperation. Many glances were shared between the different parties before they looked at Misha, giving their nod of approval. Not too bad for a reformed conscript. Oh yeah, I'm going to adjust this quickly. So yeah, the warlords. Let's do West Siberia now. This is Omsk. It's led by the Black League. They're a group of soldiers who want to prepare for the Great Trial. Originally, this was supposed to be the final conflict with Germany. A big conflict that will test the abilities of Russia, in the hopes of reclaiming Moscow. However, several revanchists took control, with this guy being the leader, Dmitry Yazov. The extremists believe in one thing. The idea that in order for Russia to be safe, Germany must be stamped out. Permanently. All Germans must die. Which is, yes, even the women and children. This is absurdly awful. Which is why it's a bad idea if they win. This is Tayuman, the remnant of the regional state that used to exist here before it collapsed. It's led by a hardcore Stalinist in a timeline where Bukharin, if you've noticed, has actually won the power struggle for the Union, for control of the Union after Stalin died. Not Stalin, Lenin died. Stalin died in an accident, and he personally wants to rebuild so that, well, to recreate the Union under a Stalinistic vision, which is, lovely. A city under siege. The city of Tomsk. Oh yeah, I'm talking about Sverdlovsk. God. After this. A city under siege. The city of Tomsk shook underneath the weight of Galanskov and his companions. Stepanov, Misharenko, Valentiev, the composer knew them all quite well. He almost had a strange fascination with them. As reporters followed the Black Army during his expansion, he was sure to read about them as soon as the articles were published. They were different in real life, smaller from his perspective atop the broadcast center. From here, he could see their march. He watched the streams of people flow out of the factories and join the raging rapids that was a march towards the city square. My money was on the king, the poet jeered. The anarchists were the last one I expected, in all honesty. Maybe that should have made them the most likely. Shut up, the scientist hissed. The woman, Yevgenia, I don't care what the composer interjected. I don't care what her name is. We are speaking over the radio. She claims to be committed to the cause of education, and I am inclined to believe her. The composer returned to watching from the window. The conversation has caused him to lose track of the leaders of the movement. Now all he could see was an huddled mass of people, marching and waving banners of the anarchist movement. The door to the room swung open, all three men turning around in silence. A young boy was there, his face a painting of panic. Kamov is on the roof with his helicopter. We have to go now. Likhatchov is attempting to organize a counter-protest. It may distract them from marching towards the building. None of the men moved. Come on, we have to go. The composer looked to the poet and the scientist. Without a word, he understood their plans. Shostakovich extended a hand to the poet. Best of luck to you both. Our experiment has failed and a new one begins. The composer limped away. Yeah, Tayuman's gone. A nation of iron, a land of tears. So here's Sverdlovsk, the last of the unifiers in Western Siberia. Sverdlovsk is run by a separatist army. They decided that Tyumen was unstable and under poor leadership, so they decided to go ahead and keep things for themselves. As expected, Bormann won the Civil War. He's a conservative, things will go pretty much the same as before. So, yeah. They are also the only group that are able to actually create a democracy in Western Siberia. Zlatoust is basically Weapons Export Incorporated. They sell weapons to everyone else within Western Siberia and Western Russia. And they're the most likely to, out of the non-unifiers, to actually win a battle. If they do, they reorganize Western Siberia to their own vision and keep it apart, since that would best serve their business interests. There's the thief territory of Yugra, which is filled with ruthless capitalists, or at least that's what they call themselves. Well, they call themselves entrepreneurs, but really they're just thieves. These are the free aviators. They are the night witches. They were the ones that were fighting against German bombers in the endless bombing campaign in Western Russia. It's half the reason why there are actual warlords instead of the dark mass that was over here. This is Vorkuta. One of the most famed gulags in the Soviet Union. Yeah, not much goes on there. And it's better that way. Open season. Sweep and search, the commander called, pointing the men towards the Grand Dacha of Alexander Pokorishkin. Aloysia didn't know what he was to do. He enlisted into the army only weeks prior. His training had been with an entirely different platoon. Aloysia followed the example of the presumably more experienced men he now served with. He had swept around the left, aiming for the entrance by the back door. Catch the falcon in his nest. Aloysia held his weapon tight to his chest as he crept. This was stupid, he thought. There was no way Okrishkin was even still in the building. He looked off to the woods in his peripherals. Nothing. Wait. Was that a pale head? A bald man in the woods? Alyosha squinted to get a better look, and the figure was gone. Stupid boy, he could hear his father's words in his head. His body told him to move, but his eyes remained peeled to the woods. He had taken a mental picture and was comparing it to his current vision. With a small switch of a branch, his gut told him to run. A snap, someone stepping on a twig. Aloysia looked around to his squad mates and then heard the break. Now, his gut told him. Aloysia panted as he ran, his gun swinging wildly from side to side. No way. There was no way. As he got closer and closer, deeper and deeper into the woods, he thought of how foolish this endeavor was. His legs kept moving regardless. He came to a clearing, a small airstrip visible in the distance. Before him, a pudgy green figure, his head bald, meandered in the distance. Aloysia knew that he should raise his rifle and did, lining up a clear shot. He would bag a falcon today. What a story that would be, a young recruit, taking down the figurehead of a state he despised. Aloysia told himself to pull the trigger, but no bullet fired. He could see, even from the great distance between them, the desperation of Pokrishkin's running. He was fighting for his life, just like Aloysia. Aloysia lowered his rifle. Alright, over here. Western Russia. We have the West Russian Revolutionary Front, which is the remnants of the regional here, that used to be here. And one of the last remnants of the Red Army. However, unlike all the other remnants, they actually fought in a West Russian war, which is actually caused them, anti-human, to collapse. So they have a lot of veterans, which is why they have this ridiculously good modifier to them. Then here we have Komi, which is an unstable republic that's, well, as you can kind of see this here. They have an extreme quantity of possibilities to go to with ideologies. An extreme amount of possibilities. They're very unstable, and unless the Democrats manage to win a landslide in the election, it triggers a set of repeating coups that keeps going until someone finally manages to fully take control. Here, Gumilov managed to do so. Yeah. This is Vologda, a neutral state. Basically, they want peace. After all the fighting. This used to be the Order of St. George. It's basically a Red Army general that decided to convert and lead a state of warrior monks. This is Vyatka. This is a leader of basically the most legitimate successor to the Russian Empire. Well, legitimate claimant. Out of all of them. This used to be Perm. The Aryan Brotherhood. It's basically a group of crazies that believe that being Aryan is a state of mind, and that if they emulate German culture, they could become that way too. Everyone hates them for very good reason. And they also believe that all Russians that do not follow this ideal should be slaves. Yeah. This used to be Tatarstan, basically Tatarstan, a state which had Tartars as its... yeah. Basically just wanted an independent state. Same with Bashkiria. This is the Gorky Tank Brigade. A small division of the Red Army that's... yeah. Tanks. Tanks and tanks. This used to be the free city of Kostroma. Not important. They tend to eventually get annexed by Vologda, either peacefully or militarily. This is Samara, which is the Russian Whites movement to the west. They're considered German collaborators since they decided to work with the Germans during the West Russian War and the Patriotic War, which is what World War II is called in Russia. This is Onega, the anti-communist guard that is basically a puppet of Finland. And this is the Southern Urals. Here we have Orenburg. It starts as an anarchist commune. They have three possibilities. Either they get... well... this guy. Whoever's leading the authoritarian socialist party. Or if they somehow manage it, they can keep the committee in power. And keep it anarchist rather than have an actual leader. This is the Euro League. They're a group of people that were from the Vorkuta Gulag and managed to travel south and create their own state. Their main goal is to protect Orenburg. Although Orenburg may or may not actually want this protection. Oh well. This is Magnitogorsk, literally Russian for the Black Mountain. They're run by Lysenko, who is become a mad scientist of sorts. Basically abducting people in order for research experiments. This guy. Dillavanga. He was so bad that the Germans decided to make him lead a last chance brigade, basically a group of people who were so bad that no one wanted them. They basically figured that the best way to deal with them, those fanatic enough to want to fight for their country, but so bad that the country didn't want them, they figured the best way to deal with it is to simply send them out to the front lines. The bastard managed to survive and leads a bandit brigade, and is going around raiding people. Freedom has been found. It actually improves the Free Siberian Territory modifier by raising political power gain, division organization, stability, and division defense. Slowly, we become better. Justice for all. There are many ways to achieve justice. Alexandra has had plotted her options from the very moment the man with the dark, blotchy beard grabbed her wrist as she left the bar. While he dragged her deeper into the alley, Alexandra pictured his head split open, his heartbeat visible in the pulsations of his brain. While she knelt before him, looking up to him, undoing his belt, she pictured being in the same position, watching his limp body swing to the gallows. As she laid in the duster, discarded like trash after use, she counted the ways to get justice. The following morning, Alexandra had made up her mind. Murder would not bring her justice. Attempting to ignore the incident as her mother had done before her would not bring her justice. Alexandra refused to carry the baggage dropped on her by a stranger. A scoundrel believed he was above the men around, that he could decide the fate of others. He was the kind of man that would feel victorious if she allowed her rage to overcome her. If he could deprive her of the same humanity he lacked, he would not win. The village had come to her call. Not all of them, of course. Many still within the city viewed the woman, even the liberated one, as one who could exist to be housewives, to be a bearer of children. Those who stormed the house of the man who forced himself upon her were the true revolutionaries, she decided. Those who dragged him out kicking and screaming, as she was the night prior, were the men and women who could bring change to Russia. The people of the village who stood as a tribunal around the man, as a fascist wanderer from the Eastern realm, and sentenced him to death, and prevented the man from winning. Alexandra did not concede to rage. She had found justice in the compassion of the people. An eye for an eye. And let us form the Siberian Free Territory, since freedom has been found. The Siberian Black Army unified Central Siberia. Sporadic news reports and announcements coming from Central Siberia have confirmed that the region has fallen under the control of a previously obscure entity known as the Siberian Black Army. Based on the teachings of Nestor Makhno from the days of the Russian Civil War, a society following militarized anarchism was formed, but the population was not protected by the state, but by a local militia and their commanders that were to protect the communes and their anarchist system. This ideology, first adopted in the lands between the Central Siberian Republic and generic Yagoda Supreme Soviet, as both governments collapsed, has now been asserted over the entirety of the CSR's former territory by the use of armed force by this new Black Army, despite all the challenges that such a system has introduced. A return that few anticipated. So, I get another research slot to work with, which is excellent. The warlord development and the Siberian project have disappeared, or at least the decisions involved. Instead, now we have regional development, which focuses more on the, well, as well as looting. Looting and raiding is also gone. Instead, that is all replaced by regional development, which focuses more on improving societal development. I'll go ahead and adjust some things. Yeah, okay, there we go. Additionally, we also have the overextended administration. Minus 35% to political power gain, minus 15% to recruitable population factor, plus 25% to supply consumption, plus 15% consumer goods, and minus 35% stability. However, there is one positive. We can now access the economic screen, which isn't looking too great. Let's lower the military budget and increase the civilian budget. I don't need military right now, and raising the civilian budget does grant me a lot of little benefits. More political power, better economy in general, etc. Partying like it's 1914. Yuri Galanskov hoisted his glass high into the air, the alcohol spilling out over the sides. He felt light, like he was riding on a cloud. Yuri had promised himself as a boy that he would never fall into the temptation of alcoholism that had taken his father from him. This felt like an exception. He would surely regret it in the morning, and it would be quick to scold Yevgenia for allowing him to partake in Stepanov's seemingly never-ending supply of booze, acquired through means unknown to Yuri. For now, that did not matter. Yuri, his glass still high in the air, spoke in slurred speech. Companions, the usual suspects, turned to him. Yevgenia, Stepanov, Valentiv, even Masharenko had come to join him. I think, Yuri trailed off, his eyes seemingly fixated on something in the distance. Do you? Badgered Stepanov. It doesn't really seem like it at the moment. Yevgenia playfully slapped Stepanov's arms. Oh, be nice. It's his first time. Let the boy celebrate a little now. We've accomplished a great victory. Valentiv raised his glass high as a toast. No doubt about that. He gulped down the bitter contents of his glass. We have all done something incredible here. There's no turning back now, Masharenko interjected, his drink untouched. We will either retire to Moscow as heroes or die here as mere stepping stones to the next regime, a footnote in the history of Russia. The trio looked at the old general with unamusement. Let's not think that far ahead, Taratulu said, tracing her finger around the outline of her glass. Today, we have won, and nothing else matters. Cheers! And that unlocks the regional focus tree. There are 4 trees. First, political, economic, military, diplomatic. However, the last 3 trees are not finished until we have the political tree done. So let's begin into a brighter tomorrow. However, that's it for this session and this episode. Alright, so what happened since then? The caretaker president is sitting in the White House. South Africa is, having a lot of fun there. The Conservatives won in Germany, and they have managed to reassert control over, well, Central Europe. Thatcher won the election. Oh joy. And the other regions are beginning their own inexorable pace towards unification. So it will take time. But I have managed to unify the region after nigh unbeatable odds. So, I'll see you again next time. Until then, bye.